Well, we've all been impacted by lockdown, the loss of a friend or a loved one, fighting over tissue paper in aisle 4, the inconvenience of wearing masks and social distancing, or the fear of having to change the way that we live. Because the biggest barrier to change is fear, and we are going through the biggest change of our life right now. When understanding change, there are some fundamentals we should look at, and one is the trigger. If we never had difficult challenges, we would never have reason to change. We need something to ignite a change, and what we're experiencing now is what we call a trigger. COVID-19 has forced us to stop, to reevaluate our actions, and make some pretty uncomfortable changes. We have to wear masks now, stay 6 feet apart, and perhaps work from home. Some companies have had to completely shut down, and others have had to modify their business model. The thing about change, though, is that everyone needs to follow the same policies and procedures. Everyone needs to move forward in unity in order for it to work. And this opens us up to our second point, is urgency. Dr. John Cotter of Harvard University, he describes urgency as that spark that motivates action and gets the change to move forward. It's what gets it off the ground. Let's talk about urgency. Now, according to Ontario Public Health, the average daily increase in cases across Ontario in March 2020 was about 24%. The June 4th headline on CTV News was Ontario COVID-19 related deaths more than double from previous day. Now that's urgency, because what would happen if we didn't take immediate action now? And this opens us up to our third point. Who is driving this change forward? And that's our change agents. Politicians, they lead as our change agents. They influence people to take action. They advocate and they can enforce legislation. Health experts, they're our change agents because they carry a level of trust, expertise, and credibility. Our favorite brands, companies, they become our change agents because they want to carry on a sense of corporate social responsibility. And then they assign specific tasks to frontline workers, and together they can really drive that change forward. So companies need to be quick to respond. Now, as a professor at Humber College, that's exactly what we did in March 2020 when we had 1 week to convert our lessons to online. At first, we were in survival mode. We just needed to figure out how can we deliver the rest of the semester. What I didn't know about was Blackboard Collaborate and access to face-to-face meetings and recordings. I learned how to create course trailers using Lumen 5. I learned how to edit video using Panopto. I learned how to create informational pages and website pages using Adobe Spark. And I had plenty of training and coaching from the Center for Teaching and Learning. So the tools were at our disposal, but the tools really forced me out of complacency and really enabled me to deliver better content. Companies like Humber have been forced to do ultra-fast innovation. Some airlines shifted to go cargo only. Restaurants went curbside pickup. Health clubs and yoga studios went online. Companies have had to pivot very quickly in order to survive, but the companies that are prepared in advance will survive the most. So I ask, how can we be prepared for a pandemic? Who could have ever possibly seen this coming? Well, I'd like to introduce you to David Bull, Canadian artist and printmaker. He has a studio in Japan where he has a team of employees. Now, about 8 years ago, he foresaw a disruption. He didn't think that it would be a pandemic. He thought that it would be an earthquake. But he did ask what would happen if we were forced to stop. So he expanded his business model so that it wouldn't depend on just one revenue stream. He describes his studio as a tripod with 3 legs. If one leg gets kicked out, then there are 2 others to stand on. Along with in-studio visits and sales, he created a subscription service and an e-commerce platform. When the pandemic hit, he launched a campaign called If You Can't Come to Japan, then Japan will come to you. And the lesson? is learn how to see into the future, manage it early before it becomes a crisis. So this opens us up to prediction and pivoting. When I taught change management to my fourth year PR students, I gave them an exercise that teaches them about prediction and pivoting. Go back into a time machine to a time when Blockbuster Video was losing the battle to Netflix and other streaming services. If Blockbuster were to do a major shift in its entire business offering, if it came up with an entirely new product with completely new core values, what could it have become? Well, Kodak, when it lost the battle in the digital camera market, the company came up with a pretty innovative solution by investing in printers, ink, 3D printing, and software. National Geographic went from a glossy magazine to an entirely multimedia platform. Yellow Pages went from a hard copy phone book and became yp.com, an online search engine. So let's go back to Blockbuster, because I told the students to use their imagination, and let's see what they came up with. Some students suggested specializing in vintage films. Some suggested that Blockbuster could have focused more on food and snacks combined with movie delivery. This opened the discussion to hosting an entire birthday party. Some students suggested that Blockbuster could have ventured more into video games and accessories. I know that hindsight is 2020, but the exercise really encouraged students to look into a crystal ball and to find innovative ways to lead a company into the future. So where are we going? Well, according to Kumar Parakala of the global professional services company GHD, he wrote, "A new form of globalization that recognizes interdependence and the good of humanity based on collective actions of countries, businesses, and people will start to emerge. As a result, companies will change their governance and business management models with greater focus on corporate social responsibility and the well-being of people." That's pretty interesting, because when I teach change management, so much of the course is about people management. It's one thing to introduce our employees and consumers to new technological advancements, new processes and procedures, but every organization involves people and changing their behavior. It involves emotion and requires empathy and sensitivity on part of our managers. What good has the pandemic done for us, or what good has come out of it? We're more resilient now. We can pivot better now during a time of crisis. We've got new tools and ways of doing things that are better than before. There is no need to be fearful of what's to come, because we are building a toolbox that can handle anything. The experiences will pull us out of complacency and force us to come up with more competitive solutions. And now we can better lead change into the future. Thank you.